a lot of it was very useful indeed. You know, people pointed out things I got wrong, or things I hadn't explained very clearly, or things I'd left out. And as a result of that, the second edition was greatly improved. It did me a lot of good. I had feedback from all around the world, certainly from Hungarians, from everywhere, China, Japan, India.
And how much impact do you think that book had on, how much impact practical English usage had on the language teaching profession?
I have no idea. You must ask the language teaching profession. People say nice things about it. People say, you know, your book helped me a lot when I was a teacher trainee, or your book helps me a lot now, or helped me when I was a student. Well, great, I'm delighted about that. But you know, a language reference book can only have a certain limited impact, because language teaching is not only about the facts of language. It's important to get those right, but it's about a whole lot of other things, questions of methodology and course organisation and so on. So it's, you know, it's had an impact if it's had one on one corner of our work.
And why do you think it is that teachers are so anxious in general about correctness? How has that developed in our profession? Where does that come from?
I don't know, really. I don't know whether there's some kind of correlation between the personality type that becomes a teacher and a tendency towards anxiety. But I mean, teachers, they want to do their jobs well, like all professionals. They want to get things right, and this can easily turn into over-perfectionism directed at themselves. So they're never satisfied with themselves, which is bad, and directed at their students, which is even worse. But why? I don't know. You must ask a psychiatrist.
But I'm certain like a talk like that gives teachers a lot of confidence.
Well, that's one of my main purposes.
Isn't it?
All around the world, people teach too much grammar and worry too much about correctness. So you get the opposite. People don't worry enough about it, but very often too much, and they give it so much importance they don't do the other things.
And can you remember when you first became aware of all the differences in English? I mean, I remember my father, when I was about 11 years old, I went to a grammar school, and telling me it was actually different from and not different to. And I remember working with American people and then suddenly realising there were things like on the weekend and not at the weekend. Can you remember when you first became aware of these varieties and differences?
Probably same as you. I mean, I grew up accepting the conventional wisdom that there's one form of the language is the correct form. That's the one spoken by the people whose ancestors came out on top. It's always like that in all countries. And so that's the correct form, so other things are incorrect. And if there's a difference, like different from, different to, then people will say one is right and the other's wrong. They usually say different from is right, because different comes from differe in Latin, which means to carry something away, so it's got to be from. Kind of argument's useless. But I suppose I believed that. I certainly liked usage books as a child, and the sort of prescriptive usage book that tells you this is right, this is wrong. And later on, I guess, when I started teaching, particularly in my 20s, I got very interested in language variety and the different ways in which people can use the language, and I started reading linguistics books. And at that time, you know, this was a common theme in linguistics books. There was a very good book by Quirk called The Use of English, which said sensible things about correctness, notions of correctness. That had a big impact on me.
Well, you said just the last thing, you said that you were top of the class in French at school. And what motivated you to be so interested in French, or why do you think you got so good at French?
I was always interested in tidy things. I liked mathematics and languages because mathematics is pretty tidy. It looks tidy at that level. And languages, the way they were taught in our schools, were terribly tidy. You had rules and tables. And I liked that sort of thing because my own personal life was totally chaotic, and family life was chaotic. And I think I fled for refuge into the tidier subjects. I didn't like history or geography. Biology, they're terribly messy. But I was very good at languages and maths and physics. Not chemistry. Chemistry was messy.
And did you learn any other languages apart from French?
I learned French and German. I specialised in German at university.
Right.
It's very rusty now. but I've still got very good reading knowledge of German,
Right.
and speaking comes back if I'm there for a bit. Otherwise, bits of languages. I've got sort of intermediate Italian and reading knowledge. I can read about half a dozen other languages, but can't say a word in them.
Right. And have you been to Hungary before?
Yes, several times, but only for very short visits. This kind of visit, you know.
Great. Well, thanks ever so much for coming to our conference.
Well, not a bit. Thank you.
Well,
I'm
lovely
having a lovely time.
Lovely having you
One
here.
of the nicest audiences I've ever spoken to.
Thank you, Michael. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.